Why should you care about what I have to say about building a classic truck? There's a lot to learn from the guy who's made every mistake in the book. Back in 2020, right before COVID kicked off, I had the bright idea of selling my perfectly good 2005 Chevy Silverado and buying a 1971 C10 to fix it up and make a hot rod out of it. Couldn't be that hard, right? I did absolutely everything wrong on that build. I didn't inspect it properly. I overpaid for it. I had no plan. I just started throwing random parts at it. I assumed I was going to daily it while I was building it. Basically, if there was a wrong way to do something, I nailed it. And after dumping an absolute ton of money into it, spending a ton of time, I ended up selling the truck at a huge loss, which is always what you're going for. Fast forward to 2024, and I built my OBS. LS swap, clean, lowered, and actually fun to drive. What's crazy is I spent less money on this build, way less money actually, than I did ruining my 71. So yeah, these are the lessons I learned building those two trucks. And this video is so that you don't do the same dumb stuff that I did with my first truck. And now I'm gonna do that cheesy YouTuber thing. Stick around to the end, because the last one is why most builds look good online but suck in real life. Before we get started with the video, I just want to mention that we are so close to 1,000 subscribers. If you like this type of content, or 3D printing, or race cars, or technology, or engineering, or anything like that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna have a lot more stuff coming soon. You can replace the engine, you can replace the suspension, you can replace the interior, but you cannot easily replace the entire truck, which is what you're trying to do if you buy something that's full of rust. My 71 looked awesome in the Facebook marketplace photos. It was lowered, clean, pictures before the sunset. In reality, it was about 40% metal and 60% lies. There was more Bondo than a Real Housewives reunion. You tap on the body, and instead of a metallic ting, you got a sad little thunk. And when I went to sell the truck, every person that came and looked at it did exactly what I should have done and inspected these things first. So number one tip, don't be like me. When you go to look at a truck, this needs to be the first thing that you look at. And do not buy a truck that's all rusted out. Unless you do this for a living, it's going to cost you way too much to get this kind of thing fixed. And also, nobody's going to want to buy your rusted out truck when you go to sell it. You go to buy your truck, the goal is really simple. And this sounds obvious. You need to buy the truck as cheaply as possible without buying garbage. Because every dollar you spend up front is a dollar that you can't spend making it how you want it. I originally found my 71 for $5,000. Unfortunately, the lady sold it out from under me before I could go pick it up. So naturally, I found the guy who bought it and paid him $9,000 for the truck. Terrible deal. No inspection, no patient, just vibes. And the vibes were mostly FOMO. I got the truck home and it was rough. The bad body, a tired engine, a rigged up interior. Meanwhile, my OBS, I got it for $2,500. So it sounds obvious, but spend as little as possible. It's going to require a lot of patience. You're going to have to wait for a deal. They're out there. You just have to wait for them. You have to go find them. One tip that I have is to actually talk to people in real life. The online marketplaces are being scoured by everybody with a computer, but your personal relationships are a lot more exclusive to you. That's actually how I found my OBS. Just mentioning to a friend that I liked his truck, and if he ever wanted to sell it, let me know. While we're on the topic of trying to do things cheaply, make sure you go into your project understanding that you don't have to buy everything out of the catalog or off of the online store. Understanding that junkyards are a gold mine, and a lot of times the OEM parts are higher quality and a ton cheaper than buying some billet aluminum piece that you don't necessarily need. The next thing I want to talk about is having a plan. You need to have a plan for where you want to go with the truck before you start buying anything. Things like the gearing and the cam and the torque converter and the engine and the fuel system, they all have to match. They all have to support each other. If you don't do this, you'll end up spending a lot of money twice on parts, and you'll probably end up with a truck that doesn't drive well at all. I recommend busting out a spreadsheet and keeping track of everything you want to do to the truck. Things might change along the way, but you really should start with a solid plan and an idea for where you want to go with the truck. Do you want it to be a race truck? Do you want a sweet drifted truck? Do you just want something that looks awesome, sounds good, and is reliable? You need to plan for that and prioritize your budget accordingly. I had over 10 grand in my C10 in parts alone, and it had a lot of sweet parts. It had a Holley EFI system, it had QA1 suspension, and a ton of other things, but it still drove like trash. And this is nothing against those two companies or any of the companies I bought parts for, but there were still so many missing links with the truck that it didn't have all that it needed to work together. Because I didn't know what I didn't know, and I failed to plan for what I actually wanted to use the truck for. This was my genius strategy. Sell my perfectly good Silverado. I was going to fix the truck up real quick and then drive it around. What could go wrong? Even in 2020, working from home, I still needed something to get around all the time. And my truck was constantly on jack stands waiting for parts or waiting for money. So I ended up borrowing my wife's car all the time. Plus, the truck was taking up our very limited garage space. And finally, when the truck did run, there was no AC. There was no heater. We were in Colorado and it was the middle of the summer. And then when it wasn't, it was the middle of the winter. So now I'm driving in an ice box or a hot box, depending on the season. Then I installed my new suspension. And guess what? Nobody within 40 miles wants to align it. So now it doesn't drive straight. Perfect daily driver. So my tip here is, if you're going to do a project truck, let it be your project. And make sure that you have somewhere to store it. It's not going to ruin your life. Now we're going to talk about the biggest trap in the history of all mankind. You want some freaking power. You want some big power. You want to gap all your buddies. You want to do some burnouts. And you want to be that dude. But if you can't put any of that power to the ground, it's not going to be any fun. You're just going to look silly. If your camshaft wants to make power at 3,500 RPM and you have a 2,000 RPM stall converter, it's going to be a dog. I don't care how much horsepower it's got. Then the other thing is reliability. I would much rather make 600 horsepower for 10 years than 1,000 horsepower for 15 minutes. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't focus on power, but I'm telling you that you got to have everything matched to go with it, or it's not going to be great. And I'm telling you that you do not need 1,000 horsepower. You probably don't even need 500 horsepower. What you probably need is 400 horsepower and a short gear to have all the fun you want, and the proper suspension to put it all to the ground. That's going to give you something that handles great and is actually fun to drive. You think you're buying a truck. You are buying a truck and a full set of tools that you didn't know that you needed. Door jack, jack stands, sockets that you don't have, bigger sockets, some weird specialty tool that you've never heard of but now you need it at 9 p.m. It adds up fast. A lot of guys are going to have tools already, but you probably don't have all the tools you need if this is your first build. And I'm never going to say that buying tools isn't worth it, but it isn't free and it adds up. So make sure this is part of your plan as well. This is the one that I wish somebody told me. When you fire up that Instagram and you're looking at trucks online, you see them from the outside. You get those low angle shots, those rolling shots, perfect lighting. They look amazing. But when you actually own one, you never see that angle. You see this. You're sitting in the driver's seat, looking at your cracked dash with no AC. The road noise is loud as hell. Your radio doesn't work. And suddenly you realize you built something that looks cool, but is a pain in the ass to drive. This is actually why I recommend getting a newer truck. They have a lot of amenities. My 71 came with nothing from the factory. And that was something I didn't realize before I bought it and was painfully obvious after I did. If the older trucks are your thing, that's fine, but you just need to understand that you're going to have to pay a premium to get these things installed if you want them. And you do. I would never touch a truck before the square bodies if I were to do it again. I think that's late enough model to still have most of the things I want. But I really do think the OBS is the sweet spot. And if I were forward thinking, or if I get another truck, I'll probably get an early 2000s because those are going to be the new classics before we know it. So yeah, the last tip, do not neglect the interior. It's where you're going to spend all your time driving the truck. And that's the part you actually live. So there you have it. Those are my 6 lessons learned from building my first truck. Hopefully you can take something from this and not make some of the same mistakes I did. If you've got any lessons you learned along your way, please feel free to drop them in the comments. It wasn't all bad with my 71. There were a lot of things that I did on that truck that I was proud of, and one of those things being the dash. I thought it turned out really cool. It just didn't really match the rest of the truck. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.